Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with your hosts, Mike Sautter and Jacob Padilla.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nebraska Preps Postgame, where we break down high school basketball and what happened. Now we're breaking down basketball, previously football and all the other stuff. But what happened last week in high school basketball, because it's that time of the year, we are getting close to winding down the regular season. Actually, 2 weeks. 2 weeks for some, but some are just this week because sub-district play and stuff. So, looking at the schedules, I was digging into them before this. We're right here. Like it's right here.
And some of these teams are going out with bangs, some big games the next 2 weeks here to close out the regular season. Starting at the top, Omaha Westview took care of business, remained at number one. 2 big blowout wins this week, and that sets up a meeting with Millard North on Thursday.
Massive game.
Yep. Pius South also, we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. Pius South also took care of business this week with 2 blowout wins. They gave up 66 points in 2 games.
Yeah.
Not bad.
They're scheduled down the stretch. It's really hard.
Yes. They've got Lincoln Northeast on Friday, who is still there at number 5. At their place, and then they're playing in the Heartland Hoops Classic on Saturday that we'll talk about as well against a Pembroke Hill team out of Missouri. Mm-hmm. So big week for Pius South there at number 2, and we'll talk more about them again next week when you and I both see them out in Grand Island. And at number 3, rising up there, Millard North after kind of a shaky start to the season. Here they are back in the thick of it.
We say shaky, but I mean, they only have 4 losses still on the season, but they started, 4-3 or whatever, right? So It's one of those where it's like, oh man, the start was slow.
Yeah. Anyway. So they 63-37 against Burke. Derek Rollins, 24 points, 9 boards, 3 assists, doing Derek Rollins things. Then they followed up with
Westside.
Biggest win yet, 69-66 win at Westside. There, Derek Rollins, 26 points, 11 boards, 3 assists. So again, another monster performance. They got 7 threes combined between Corian Gallatin and Major Monster, and 10 points out of Deacon Courtney on 5 of 6 shooting. So good offensive production there around Rollins, who is continuing to have the big season. But producer Austin, he was there for us for Big Game Chain. What do you see in that matchup?
I thought, like you mentioned, Deacon Courtney getting like 8 of his points in the first 3 quarters of the 10 total. That was huge because it just changed what Westside was kind of preparing for dynamically. And Derek Rollins, it feels like every time I've seen him now in person, he adds just a little new element to his offensive game. And this time he had a couple of turnaround step backs and some different 3-point opportunities too. He was good, but the biggest thing that I took from that one was mostly just Westside. It felt like there were just moments that I don't know what Westside really is right now, right? Because the other times I've seen them when they beat Creighton Prep, Emery Gedek had a fantastic game. Lee Robinson has really exploded throughout the shoot in a couple of different moments. But this one, just even though Lee had 17 points, Gedek fouled out in the contest, it was just one of those where they felt very discombobulated, yet they were in the game the entire time. So it was such an interesting dynamic between the two, because you never felt that Westside was truthfully out of it, but that Millard North really kind of had control of it throughout the contest despite being on the road too.
Yeah. And Westside, they're at number 4, still hanging around 17-3. Yeah. And those 3 losses are to Pius South and Millard North, who are the teams right ahead of them.
Yeah.
So
2 to Pius South.
Yeah. So that I mean, you look at their schedule, that's they're having a fantastic season. No bad losses. They're right up there on 17 wins on the year. But like Austin said, it's kind of game to game, especially now with Donnie Barfield out. That's another potential option for them. I think the big key this week, and they went 2-0 outside of that Millard North win. They beat South by 51. And then they held on to beat North by 4 after the Millard North game. So that's kind of a trap game.
Tough.
You lose your big, kind of the one you've been building up for. You come up just short in that one, emotional loss, and then have to gear up to play again right away. And so they North gave them a battle, but they pulled out. I think the key last week was London Dada coming alive. He had 21, shot 5 of 10 from 3 against South. Had 21, shot 5 of 9 from 3 against Millard North. And had 19, shot 5 of 9 from 3 against North. So, like he's a guy that, I mean, you've been a fan of his for a while, the potential that he has, the length, the ability to shoot. You get 5 threes a game from him, especially it's not a great shooting team as a whole.
Right.
So if you're getting the floor spacing from him knocking down threes, that's huge for their offense.
Everything for the straight line drivers or drivers like Lee Robinson and Emery Geddicks, another driver like that. Opens up some paint stuff too for Oddvity, and his ability to stretch the floor will be key for them down the stretch here. Yeah, so him, the sophomore finding some consistency would be huge for them being able to make a run in the postseason. We'll see if that's this was the start of that. And Westside has a decent schedule here this week. I mean, you have Southeast and Buena Vista, who's 13-8, much better than they were. 2 guards put up big numbers they have to deal with. Right, and then they follow that up next week with Lincoln East and Elkhorn South. So get through this week. Then next week, you have 4 games here that you would think if you're Westside are winnable. So, but none of them are just rollovers. At Lincoln Southeast. Yeah. Tough little matchup there. Yeah. So that's how Westside's going to finish. At 5 is Lincoln Northeast. We mentioned Buena Vista. They won an 8-point game at their place. Got 4 guys in double figures, and it's kind of the 4 that they typically rely on. Ozark Houston didn't have a great game, 19 points, 7 turnovers, but Grant Fredericks, 14 points. Easton Schweitzer, 12 points. Mo Abdallah, 12 points. So it is more than just Ozark Houston. That team around him has really grown and settled in, and they're legitimately a top 5 team, best team in Lincoln. They have to find different pieces, but Ozark also needs to be 20 something a game for them to win games. So, what it is. Followed up with a 97-71 win against at Omaha South. 97 points, not bad. Yeah, that's pretty good. Houston had 22 in that one. Fredericks had 17 or 16. Abdallah had 16. Schweitzer had 16. So again, the big 4 carrying the load. Lou Hidoli for Omaha South, 37 points and 12 rebounds in the loss. Not enough around him, but that was a pretty impressive performance despite the final result there for him. So just wanted to mention that. Number 6 is Creighton Prep, who won in 1 week, still kind of hanging around there, but they dropped one to Lincoln Southwest, who we'll talk about in a few minutes here. 79-77, no Janelle Parker. And that's a huge, particularly in that matchup where Southwest, doesn't have a ton of size in there. So you would have thought there would have been a good matchup for Parker, and he did not play in that game. Connor Peters went off for 24 points, 6 of 8 from 3. But they got 17 from Torrin Carter-Brown, 17 from Max Junger, 6 boards, 6 assists. He's kind of the key to them. They need him to have big games against good teams. Be in double figures. Yes. Yeah. They need him to be able to kind of take a step forward here as we head into the postseason for them to make a run. And they followed it up. They got Parker back and pulled out a grinder with Lincoln Southeast, 50-48, using a big third quarter, kind of take control and then held on in the fourth. Parker had 14 points. Carter Brown had 13. Mike Nagoya had 23 points. An efficient game. Everybody else had 6 points or less. So Prep really locked down defensively on all the other options for Southeast there. And I will say, I thought Parker was going to have a bigger season than he has. And I think that's the key to Prep continuing to kind of make a push. Dominant, big man. They got to find a way to get him more opportunities. Only 7 shots against a team that doesn't have a lot of size in Southeast. That's one where I think Prep to kind of make a leap and truly contend and compete with the best teams. They got to find a way to get 20 plus out of Parker every single night, and then that'll open up things for everybody else. But they've got their kind of annual rivalry game with Rockers making the trip up here on Saturday. So they got a whole week to prepare for that. At 7 is Bellevue West. Good week for them. Very good week. Really good week for the T-Birds. Indeed. I was a little surprised just at 7, but they do have 7 losses there, so understandable. But their schedule has been pretty tough. Start of the week, they 67-52 win against Lincoln North Star. North Star, who beat Millard North earlier in the season, is having a good year down in Lincoln. They were up 32-14. Yeah, I was going to say it started a little that score is a little bit closer than you than it kind of was. Maybe
32-14 at halftime. They held North Star to 29% shooting to offset 22 turnovers, and that's the Westview. Like that's something Bellevue West is going to have to figure out. They had 21 turnovers against Westview, and that pretty much cost them that game the previous week. So area for growth there. Obviously, young guards that are going to have to grow up in a hurry there, but they did more than enough to get that win. Robbie Garcia, just monster season, just double every single night, 20 and 10 plus boards. He had 28 in this one on 11 of 14 shooting, 11 rebounds. They got 15 points from Braden Morrow, and they followed it up with a 78-63 win at Kearney that we both saw on Saturday. Yeah. Big run to
again.
To
that score was probably a little closer than it actually was.
Yeah, they went on a big run to take a 15-point lead at halftime and then just basically traded water the rest of the way. Jacob Weber got going a little bit to kind of keep Kearney with
shooting distance, striking distance.
I think 9 was as close as they got. Yeah. And then Bellevue West kind of slammed the door shut. But Robbie Garcia, 24 points, 14 boards, 5 assists. Keaton Melcher off the bench, 14 points, 4 or 5 from 3. And then they got 8 assists, 7 boards from Bryce Johnson, 11 points from Braden Morrow, 5 assists for him as well. And then Jacob Corey at 11 points, was on the offensive glass. So really well-rounded performance for Bellevue West.
The thing with Robbie in that game against Kearney, he guarded Jacob Weber basically the whole game. Which
Jacob and Ben, they're kind of moving around.
But like he guarded their 2 best players primarily the whole game, which is pretty good because normally, he's a post defender, and I thought he did a pretty good job, particularly in the first half, defensively on that end. Yeah. Like that doesn't show up in the numbers, right? But I thought he did a good job.
And then on the other hand, Kearney had no answer for him inside.
Right,
didn't even have a great shooting game from 3. Still dropped 24. And he's really grown, I think, a lot as an interior scorer. That was kind of always the question. He preferred to step out and shoot. He's become a well-rounded scorer this year, and they've absolutely needed to. So he's having a monster season. Had as good a year as anybody there. So Millard South, kind of light week for them. They're at 8. They beat Norfolk at 17 out of Kobe Myers. Obviously, they're still kind of settling in post Deshaun Prince injury there. Still trying to work Isaac Jensen back in there. So we'll see kind of what they look like in the postseason. North Star is still hanging in there at 9. Before the Bellevue West loss, they beat Central 66-57 behind 30 points from Jordan Casper, who went 7-11 from 3. So he's capable of going off in any given game, and just dropping a monster game, and he did, and he can do it in different ways. Again, can get hot from 3 like that, can get to the basket, really attacks, draws a ton of contact. So North Star is sitting there at 16-5, and then here at 10, Lincoln Southwest cracking the top 10 after a really good week. They got that win against Prep. Obviously, no Parker, but still, that's a good win against a great program there, 79-77, and Micaiah Sanders, 21 points, 9 of 13 shooting, 5 assists, 2 steals, and Uzziah Sanders, 20 points, 4 of 10 from the field, 11 of 13 from the line, 9 boards, and 5 assists. Key there, though, is because those guys have been doing it, and I'll talk about that in a moment. They got 15 points from Kavion Reynolds, and they got 12 points on 4 or 5 shooting from 3 from Hudson Mesger. And without Jackson Cruz, they need to find other guys that can score, and those 2 provided that in that game to put up nearly 80. And then they followed it up again with another 79 point performance in a 15-point win at Millard West, kind of spoiling the Wildcat Senior Day.
I watched that game.
Yeah, so did I. I was there.
You were?
I was. Yeah,
I didn't see you. That's weird. What? Really?
At Millard West?
Yeah,
I was there.
You were there?
I was sitting. I was a couple rows behind Stu.
I didn't see you at all.
I didn't see you either. Oh, I had no idea.
I was just watching. Holy cow! No, I thought their guards just getting downhill. The Twins just getting downhill.
Millard West didn't have a prayer of staying in front of them. They tried zone, they tried man, none of it worked.
That's what they're going to do, and they just got downhill the whole game.
Yeah, Micaiah, 28 points, 10 of 16 shooting, all on 2s. He had 6 steals and 5 rebounds. Uzziah, 21 points. That's after foul trouble in the first half. He scored 15 in the third quarter. to really get going there. And finished 8 of 12 from the field, 3 steals. Hudson Mesker, 18 points, went 5 of 9 from 3. Nice so game. Again, providing that third scoring punch there to go with the Twins. And speaking of Twins, that was the 7th straight game for Uzziah with 20 or more points. During that 7th game, he's averaging 24.1 points on 61% shooting, 39% from 3, 78 from the line, almost 5 boards, 3 assists, and almost 3 steals a game. It was also the 4th straight for Micaiah with 20 plus. And over those last 4, he's averaging almost 25 a game on 65% shooting, 44% from 3, nearly 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and over 3 steals a game. So those two have been on an absolute tear. And if you've never seen those guys play, I've had the fortune of coaching both of them the last couple of years. 5'9" guys, they are relentless attacking the basket, so good at finding creases to get the ball up around the rim, so quick defensively, the way they fly around.
Kind of feels like Alex Bob maybe is a pretty good coach.
Finding ways to kind of put those guys in position to succeed again with somewhat limited roster with the injury and no true post presence and offensively again losing Cruz, who was a double-digit scorer for them, and then kind of reconfiguring. They've been on a nice little run recently to get back in the stretch.
That's what I'm saying. Like he figured good coach.
Yeah, they pushed North Star in the Hack semis there. Only lost that one by 3, and now here they are picking up some good wins this week. And they've got a tough stretch to finish. They got Bellevue West at North and against Central to close out the year.
Yeah, especially Central size is a thing.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. But I mean, they put themselves in a much better position from where they could have been after losing Cruz a handful of games ago. So that's kind of what we've got in Class A. Want to jump ahead to Class B now?
B. So Norris stays at 1. Basically, everybody kind of stayed the same except for Pius jumped. Elkhorn North 3-4 switched. Everyone else kind of stayed where they were at.
Yeah, so. Norris, they beat Beatrice, and then they had 14 guys score in that game against Beatrice, which is impressive and speaks to their depth. But 58-50 grinder at Gretna. You know, Gretna, they're good at slowing the pace, and Norris likes to run.
Right.
Gretna did a great job of controlling the pace.
I text you that halftime score. I was like, "Hey, this is what they do."
And I told you, it's like, just wait. I think they're going to open up. And they never credit to Gretna, because Norris never quite pulled away completely, but still ended up 58-50 win because of Chris Garner Jr. Jr. 20 points. Went over 1,000 career points for the Titans. Just the 3rd player to do that, joining Chris Boziger and Barrett Boziger, his own teammate, who is their all-time leading scorer now. So he'll have to try to pass up Barrett next year. I think Barrett's going to hold on to that title the rest of this season. But pretty nice to have your 2 leading scorers in program history on the court at the same time. Yeah. That kind of explains why Norris is 19-1 right now, and they've got 19-1 though, but
massive game,
massive week.
Yeah, the week is big, but Tuesday that game is huge, especially at Scott.
At Scott,
small gym.
You were at the game last year. Went just crazy
great.
Finish.
It was a great game. Super competitive. It was good. It was back and forth.
Brock Scholl at the end made the play. Yeah.
And Brock, that was when the switch flipped for Brock, I think, to the toughness switch. And that game was awesome last year, and it's going to be pretty good.
And now they're going to Scott's place. Yeah, obviously smaller gym. That place is going to be packed.
The floor is small. I feel like everything is kind of smaller in there. But
and then no chance to catch your breath, because
student sections there are going to be
sitting there at the little press table behind the score table, you can't even see the corner because the students are on their feet and that section's full the entire game. So it's going to be a great atmosphere there on Tuesday. And then Norris has to turn around and play Elkhorn North on Friday at their place.
Tough game.
And conference
tough
rivalry there.
And
Elkhorn North is they're at number 4. They're 15-3. So massive week in Class B here as we approach the end of the season. You mentioned Pius. They moved up to 3 with a 56-55 win against Millard West. And you kind of look at their schedule. They are 4-4 against Class A teams.
Dude, their schedule is so hard.
3-3 against Class B teams when they played Scud a ton. And they're 4-2 against teams from out of state. So they had to kind of piece together what they could get once they dropped down to B and left the HAC conference. And credit to them for taking on all challengers. Whoever was willing to put them on the schedule.
Whoever wants to play them, played them.
And so they're only 12-8, but they're ranked third because the coaches have that much respect for what
and they've won a lot here down this stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, they've won some good games here.
Yeah, so Elkhorn North, so Pius at 3, Elkhorn North at 4, Scottsbluff hangs in at 5, 2 big wins there. Wahoo, big one against Creighton. I was there on Thursday, 61-52, kind of pulled away in the third quarter, and Creighton played a zone that gave Wahoo a lot of problems, and then eventually they got the ball to Dylan Simons along the baseline, and he started picking them apart either for buckets or finding teammates. Cody Esser got in foul trouble in the first half, knocked down 2 big threes in the third quarter to kind of bust that zone, and so really good win for Wahoo there.
They go to Wayne tomorrow. Wayne for C1 team, they're 18-3. Yeah, like that's Wayne's probably biggest test.
So 34-6 combined record going into that game between those two. Because Dylan Simons had 18 and 14 against Creed, and then 20 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks against Beatrice later in the week. He is a stat sheet stuffer, and having a great season there for Wahoo. Gretna East is at number 7. They've got, speaking of Wahoo, they go to Wahoo on Saturday, so that should be a fun one as well. Aurora, they're at number 8.
Then they have Mount Michael. Gretna East does the night before too. Yeah. So tough.
Yep, at 8. Aurora at 18.
Blair, Mount Michael, Wahoo this week. That's a tough
3-game week.
A little tough week for Gretna East.
Yep. So a chance to kind of further prove themselves there. 13-6, and then Aurora 18-2. Obviously, kind of going up to B. They played a lot of C1 teams or whatever it is, a lot of area teams.
Kind of
but
their conference too.
Big one on Thursday. They're at Creighton, who just dropped out of the top 10 with the loss this past week, but they're still a quality ball club there. And they also Aurora also faces Scott on February 20th.
Yeah, next week. Thursday. Yep.
And Booker Shireman kind of leading the way for that team.
At Aurora too.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So that's a chance. Aurora will have a chance to really prove themselves down the stretch here. 9 Bennington got hammered by Scott on Tuesday, 47-74, and then bounced back to beat Gretna by 16. And then DC West cracking the top 10 there. They're at 18-2, moving up from C1.
They have looking ahead this week. They go to Platteview. DC West does on Friday night. So
that'll be the
kind of middle bottom.
A solid Class B team, because obviously
middle bottom always, of the Class B top 10 is what I mean.
Yeah, with your conferences and when you change B to A or C or change class or whatever, the schedule kind of makes it tough to prove themselves. That's a chance for them to go prove themselves against Class B competition there.
And then they have Concordia after that.
That's tough. Speaking of C1, Concordia, they are still hanging in there at number 3, or moved up to number 3. Yeah. Lincoln Lutheran held on at 1. Ogallala moved up to back up to 2, 19-1, because Cozad dropped to 5 after losing the rematch with Holdridge.
Yeah,
Holdridge 82-73. Holdridge won that one. Holdridge they got some guys, Garrett Johnson, Baron Medina, guys that can really go.
Garrett Johnson can really shoot it.
Yeah.
Like he really can.
And we're seeing he kind of has become an all-around player. Yeah. He steals, blocks, assists, rebounds. He might be the player of the year in C1. I think he's very high in consideration there.
Yeah, there's some other guys in there, but I mean, he's definitely one of the guys to look at there.
Yes. Elsewhere in C1, Auburn dropped down to 7 after losing their conference tournament championship to Freeman, Freeman at 19-1. Still
their
hanging
one
in
loss
there at
is to Johnson Brock, who's won like
undefeated D1.
Yeah.
So that was
play again. Freeman and Johnson Brock play again Thursday.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so
we can get to that.
Yeah. So impressive win for Freeman there. Auburn still 16-3 though, hanging in there at number 7. And then finally, Donovan Trumbull cracked the top 10 at number 9, won their conference tournament. Jack Poppy, his week, the 3 games last week for the tournament, averaged 26.3 points, 6.7 assists, and 4.0 stocks per game, shooting nearly 74% from the field, 48 from 3, and 100% from the line.
You meant to say blocks per game.
No, steals and blocks.
Oh, steals and blocks.
Yes.
I was like, okay.
He's averaging a block a game as a 6'2" guard.
Got it. Yeah.
In addition to almost 4 steals a game this year. So Poppy is a guy that stuffed the stat sheet. You've got him. You got Parker Volk. It's a really nice 1-2 punch there. And those guys are only juniors. So Donovan Trouble kind of opting up C1, having a strong season and kind of getting better as the season goes on. They had some football carryover with their main guys. Volk got hurt in football, and he's playing better over the second half of the season. So Donovan Trouble there, 13-5, but they are going to be not going to be someone you want to play come the postseason.
And let's go D1. So Johnson Brock, I brought it up real fast. Their week is it's really hard. So Thursday night they play Freeman at Freeman.
Yeah,
tough game. It went to overtime when they played in the Mudecas final.
So again, 39-1 combined record between those two teams.
And then they play HTRS, who's 10-9, and they've played before already. It's just it's one of those where I guess the last time they played was in December. It was 73-28, but it's just a back to your 2 road games there, right? And then they play the 9:40 game in Grand Island.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that here to wrap up
against Summerlin, who's a pretty good team and is 18-2.
Number 3 in C2.
Yeah. So that's a 9:40 a.m. game, and you're playing at HTRS, which is as far southeast as you can get in Nebraska. One of the far, reaching. What do you do? Are you leaving at 5 a.m.? Are you going to Grand Island the night before? What do you do?
It's a good question. That's something that I'm sure
because that's
already decided.
3 hour plus maybe. And
you never want to have to be the team that jumps out of a car and has to play right away because that certainly impacts your legs.
Tough stretch.
Yeah,
those three games. That's 3 days like that is tough, especially with a 9:40 a.m. College basketball coaches are, around here. One in particular in Lincoln. It always talks about the rest and the needing, legs and the traveling and the, West Coast stuff. And it's always talking about well, why do we have to do this? Well, try that one. Not easy.
So if Johnson Brock maintains their unbeaten record through this week, they'll have certainly earned it. But
I'm looking up right now, Johnson, Nebraska to Grand Island because I'm just curious.
Yeah,
how far that is. 2 hours and 26 minutes.
Yeah,
and you play at 9:40 a.m.
I don't know the proper way to handle that.
What do you do?
I guess we can ask him on Saturday because
now I'm very curious. Yeah. I'm going to text or call some. I have the people down there's phone numbers. I'm just curious now.
Well, you and I will be there.
Yes,
you were driving out the night before for something.
Thursday.
I will make the morning of drive. So we got 2, 4, 6, 7 games this year. Nice little slate.
Good
you mentioned
matchups.
Summerlin,
Really
Johnson Brock again. 2 top 3 teams in their classes. Then Donovan Trouble, who I just talked about, against Lincoln Lutheran.
Really good matchup.
So massive C1 game there. Another top 10 game. Adams Central with Hunter Nepple, who's having a monster sophomore season against Ashland Greenwood, who great program obviously, and
they're playing
still top
better
10
now. They're doing just fine.
Sydney against Grand Island Central Catholic there. Tino Martinez always has his team in there hosting
is number 2 or whatever.
Yeah, and just had a big win recently, and Sydney is always tough. Good athletes out there. And then you've got the kind of out of state at 4:30. It's Pius South against Pembroke Hill out of Missouri.
Hawkins kid for Pembroke Hill's good guard, nice point guard. So
and then at 6:15, it's Millard North against Wasatch Academy out of Utah.
And Wasatch is top 20, they're 11th or something.
Are they? Yeah. That'll be a tough one. And then finally,
what? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's just finally the nightcap. It's 2 out-of-state teams. Mount Zion Prep against Sunrise Christian Academy. Mount Zion Prep, that's Maryland, was it? Against Sunrise Christian out of Kansas.
Wasatch is ranked number 11th in ESPN's.
Okay.
That's the next top 25, and then Mount Zion is 25th, and Sunrise is 17th.
So three top 25 teams coming to Grand Island,
Tough test
Nebraska.
for Millard North, man. But hey, Like,
they're playing better. Certainly more prepared for it now than they were 3 weeks ago.
It's also not one of those things where
it matters.
It surprises you now that a Nebraska team wins that game. Like,
or at the very least, every year they make these teams work for it.
Yeah, or they're competitive or whatever. It's not like this crazy blowout thing.
No,
right?
Nebraska's represented themselves well in these matchups year in and year out, which is a big part of why Tino continues to do this, because it's really good basketball and it's kind of a novel experience. And it's always one of my favorite days of the year. So I'm looking forward to getting out there.
I'm looking forward to actually being there the whole time this year.
Yeah. No, you and I have both done the kind of out, back and forth. One year I went. That
was crazy.
Yeah, one year I went out there in the snow for the morning session, drove back to cover a Nebraska game in Lincoln, and then went back for the night games there. Yeah. Again, there was snow all over the place. I slid a few times. That was not the smartest thing I've ever done in my life, but I made it through. No need for that this week. I'll be able to sit down and take in all 7 games, and you and I will recap them next week on the show.
Yes, we will. All right, that'll do it for Nebraska Prep's postgame this week.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.